Hi, this is John from the Garmin Marine team, and this is part 2 on installing the GHP 20, Garmin's revolutionary new autopilot system. Now in part 1, we showed you how to install several components of the GHP 20, including the autopilot display head, the CCU, and the smart pump. In part 2, we'll show you how to install the shadow drive, the optional GRF10 rudder feedback unit, and then we'll walk you through the setup and sea trial of the GHP 20. Now just a reminder, installing the GHP 20 or any marine autopilot is not for everyone. You must be familiar with the boat's electric and hydraulic systems, and Garmin recommends having a professional install the system on your boat. Check out our website to find an installing dealer near you if you have any qualms about the installation. However, if you decide to tackle the installation, Garmin's technical support team is always standing by to help you out if you should have any questions. So last time, we installed the smart pump in the boat's hydraulic steering system. Let's start off part 2 back in the hydraulic system by installing a sensor called the shadow drive, a Garmin exclusive. The shadow drive does two things. It senses when there's hydraulic flow in your steering system and then communicates with the autopilot controller to disengage the pilot automatically. Let's say you're in your boat. You're traveling to your favorite fishing hole with the autopilot engaged. You're keeping a good lookout while the autopilot is driving, and then you spot some debris right in the water, right in front of you. What's your natural reaction? Yeah, sure, you grab the wheel and steer the boat around it. The Garmin shadow drive unit will sense that you've turned the wheel and it will immediately disengage the autopilot. That way, you're not fighting the autopilot that's trying to keep you on your earlier course. And you're not fumbling to hit the standby button like other autopilots make you do. The shadow drive is a little sensor that makes a big difference in the way our autopilots work. Now, in order for the shadow drive to work properly, it must be installed properly. The shadow drive can either be inserted into the port or starboard hydraulic steering lines and should be securely mounted in between the helm and the pump, not between the pump and the cylinder, horizontally and as level as possible, at least a foot away from any magnetic material, closer to the helm than the pump, and lower than the helm but higher than the pump. The shadow drive should not be mounted directly to the helm or any hydraulic T-connections. Rather, you should install a length of hose between any fittings and the shadow drive itself. As with all hydraulic fittings on the Garmin Autopilot, use a thread sealant instead of Teflon tape, as small bits of tape could block the flow sensor and make the shadow drive inoperable. The most common installation would be to first install the appropriate pipe fittings into either end of the shadow drive. Then make up a 2 or 3 foot length of appropriate hydraulic hose and connect one end of the hose to the shadow drive. Disconnect either the existing port or starboard hose from the back of the helm and connect it to the other side of the shadow drive. Finally, connect the open end of the new hydraulic hose to the helm and tighten everything down securely. Now, mount the shadow drive horizontally and as level as possible somewhere behind and below the helm. Earlier, when you installed the CCU, remember that you ran the black and brown wires up to the shadow drive's intended location. You can now connect the shadow drive wires to the CCU wires, red to brown, black to black, and the shadow drive installation is complete. Okay, finally, we want to show you Garmin's optional rudder feedback unit, the GRF10. The GRF10 will track and display the rudder's position on your display so you can instantly see that information. Rudder position is very useful when you're maneuvering the boat in tight quarters, like entering or exiting a slip. The problem with rudder feedbacks in the past is that they were susceptible to all kinds of marine corrosion and failure due to their design. Garmin has developed a new sensor based on the magnetic property called the Hall effect that allows us to completely seal the sensor and should reduce the effects of corrosion on the sensor and increase its working life. Now, frankly, you would not install the GRF10 on this type of boat with outboard engines. It would be nearly impossible to get the feedback to work when the engines can tilt up like this. And besides, you can just look back and see the engine position anyway. Our pilot is so smart, it doesn't need a rudder feedback to work well. But adding a GRF10 where you cannot easily see the rudder's position, like on a sailboat or a power boat with rudders, makes a lot of sense. So let's take a look at a different boat and look at the typical installation of a GRF10. First, you'll need to consider where to mount the rudder feedback itself. The sensor must be installed parallel to the tiller arm and the rotation axes must be aligned so the GRF10 can rotate freely as the rudder turns. You may need to fabricate a custom bracket to support the rudder feedback unit, depending on your boat's construction. Once you're satisfied with the rudder feedback's position, you can begin the installation. Make sure the boat's rudder stays amidships for this installation, and make sure the GRF10 is in the center position by aligning these arrows on the unit. Now, you can use the GRF10 to mark your mounting holes, then drill the holes, and mount the GRF10 using the supplied hardware. Next, you'll need to install the tiller arm mount to the tiller arm. Mark and drill the 2 holes for the tiller arm mount, and then attach it to the tiller arm using the included hardware. You'll need to connect the tiller arm to the GRF10 with this connecting rod, preferably using this second mounting hole. This connecting rod can be shortened as needed. First, thread this nut onto the connecting rod, and then just mark and cut the rod with a sharp hacksaw blade. Now remove the nut, and it should straighten out any threads that were damaged while making the cut. Now you can install a ball joint onto either end of the connecting rod and attach the GRF10 to the tiller arm. Make sure to test the alignment of the GRF10 to ensure that it swings freely and doesn't bind through its entire range of motion. Finally, run the GRF10 sensor wire to the smart pump and connect it to the plug labeled feedback. The sensor's wire is 2 meters long. If your pump is mounted farther than 2 meters away, extension cables are available from Garmin's website or through our network of authorized dealers. You'll need to calibrate the GRF10, but we'll show you how to do this later during a dockside setup. Okay, so now we're back on our original boat and we're nearly done with the installation. The autopilot display is mounted and connected to the NEMA 2000 backbone. The CCU is mounted and connected to NEMA 2000, the smart pump, the shadow drive, and the alarm. The smart pump is installed, secured, and wired to the CCU. The shadow drive is installed and wired to the CCU as well. We even showed you how to install an optional GRF10 rudder feedback if you wanted one. One thing left to do is connect the smart pump to power by connecting the power plug to the pump, and then follow your manufacturer's recommendations on bleeding your hydraulic system to remove any air bubbles. With that, the installation is complete. Now for the fun part. Let's get this boat in the water and set up the autopilot. Okay, now we're talking. We're tied up at the dock and we can now set up the autopilot to work with this boat's unique steering characteristics. Garmin makes the setup as easy as possible with software that walks you through each step. First with a dockside wizard and later with a sea trial wizard. When you turn the unit on for the first time, you should be prompted to complete the setup process. If you don't see the dockside wizard, select Menu, Setup, Dealer Autopilot Configuration, Wizards, and Dockside Wizard. First, select the type of vessel you're on: power planing, power displacement, sailing, or catamaran. Now test the steering direction. Press the left soft key, and the rudders or engine should move so the boat will turn to the left. Press the right soft key, and the boat should turn to the right. Select Continue, and then if the rudders turn the correct way, select Yes. If they turn the wrong way, select No. If you have the GRF10 rudder feedback installed, you will need to calibrate it now. Here's how you do it. First, turn the wheel so the boat would steer fully to starboard and select OK. Now, steer fully to port and hit OK again. Finally, center the rudder, let go of the wheel, and select Begin. The GHP 20 will take control of the rudder and complete the calibration. Once the calibration is completed successfully, select OK. Once the setup is complete, you'll be able to see your rudder's position right on your autopilot display and confirm the rudder's movement. Now select the speed source. We can get the speed from several sources. By far the best option is to get engine RPM data through the NMEA 2000 network if your engines are capable. If they are, choose NMEA 2000 as your speed source. If this is not available and you have a GPS connected to the autopilot, you can select GPS as the speed source. If you don't have either available, you can select None. Please note that if your autopilot does not perform well with none selected, we recommend connecting RPM or GPS speed data to the pilot and then updating your selection. One last thing to check, since we have our engines connected to the autopilot, we need to compare the RPM readings from our tachometer to the RPM readings on our display and confirm they match. It's time for the smart pump to show you just how smart it is. In the past, you would have had to enter the vessel's helm size and count the number of turns on the steering wheel it took to go hard over. The smart pump eliminates the need to enter any of that manually, as it will calculate the amount of fluid it needs to pump automatically. When the display asks if you want to begin a lock-to-lock test, select Begin. The pump will drive the rudders hard over to port and starboard and determine how much it has to pump to make the rudders turn quickly but safely. With that, the Dockside Wizard is complete. Review all the Dockside Wizard results to confirm the settings, and if you're happy, select Done. Now we need to cast off and find a nice wide open stretch of calm water to do our sea trial. Alright, this looks like a great spot to do our sea trial. Plenty of water all around us, no boats around us at all. You want to make sure the boat does not rock excessively during the sea trial. So pick a day when it's not too windy or choppy, and don't move around a lot while you're doing the sea trial. Alright, so let's get into the sea trial wizard that's going to guide us through this sea trial process. If it's not already up on screen, select Menu, Setup, Dealer Autopilot Configuration, Wizards, and Sea Trial Wizard. It first asks us for the planing RPM, so go ahead and enter that information here. When that's done, we can calibrate the compass. When instructed, begin turning the boat slowly, steadily, clockwise, keeping the boat as flat as possible. Aim to make a large circle in about 2 minutes. You should see a just right message on screen or instructions to speed up or slow down. After about 3 complete revolutions, you should get a compass calibration successful message. If it fails, simply redo the compass cal from the beginning. If it fails repeatedly, it may indicate compass interference. You may have to look at another location for the compass ball. In this installation, the compass worked fine, so we can move on to the auto-tune process. Adjust your throttle so the boat travels slower than planing speed, but fast enough so that the rudders have a good bite, and then press Begin. Make sure you have lots of running room here, as the autopilot will take over steering the boat and perform a series of zigzag turns. During this stage, the autopilot is learning how much it needs to deflect the rudders to make the boat respond. It will continue to make the zigzag turns as it learns your boat's characteristics. When the auto-tune is complete, take control of the boat and then select Done. If the auto-tune fails, increase the boat speed slightly and try again. Finally, if you have a GPS attached, you'll be asked to set north. If not, you'll be asked to input fine heading adjustments. Now to set north, again, make sure you have lots of room to run and drive the boat at cruising speed in a straight line and press Begin. Try to choose a direction that will minimize side slip by running downwind or down current. During this test, we're comparing the electronic compass heading to the GPS heading so we can orient the compass properly. Once the compass is oriented, a message will pop up to say the calibration was successful and select Done. With that, the sea trial is complete. Take some time to test the performance of the autopilot at slow speed to make sure the autopilot is holding a steady course in heading hold mode. Also, test the autopilot to confirm the boat is turning smoothly and adjusting for any course corrections you enter. And if you have a GPS connected to the autopilot, enter a waypoint and confirm the autopilot is steering to that waypoint. If you want to manually tune your autopilot, check the installation manual for some tips on fine-tuning and configuration. If you're happy with the performance, well, you're already out on the water, so pick your favorite destination and let the new GHP 20 drive you there. Even better, if you have a vision card loaded into your Garmin GPS, we can create an auto guidance route for you. A custom route based on your boat's height and draft. The GHP 20 will negotiate all the turns in that route and get you to your destination in style. So your GHP 20 installation is complete. You should now have a revolutionary autopilot installed and working on the boat. The smart pump automatically sets itself up specifically for your boat's steering system to give you the performance you want and the safety you need. Your Garmin GPS and your GHP 20 autopilot should be working together to make your time on the boat even more enjoyable. With a little routine maintenance, the robust components of the GHP 20 should give you years of dedicated service and trouble-free operation. If you have any questions about the GHP 20 or any Garmin Marine products, go to garmin.com/marine or ask any one of our authorized dealers. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the water.